So recently, I've been thinking a lot about supporting companies that you don't necessarily have any stake in. This thought originally stemmed when the Switch 2 came out, and just with the whole Nintendo pricing, how they price their games and products, raising the Switch prices and whatnot. But it kind of resurfaced recently with just the Game Awards and how passionate I see people getting about their games. And don't get me wrong, being passionate about games is great. Like the Souls games, I'm really passionate about those and I could talk about those for hours. But there's levels to it. And I think some people just get to the point where it's no longer passion, but almost blind support. Like, I see people fighting for their game to win as though their bloodline's future depends on this game winning the award. And I see this insane level of shilling so often now with so many of these companies that really have zero interest in the person behind that's using the product, but people will still defend these companies like their parents work for them. It's quite insane to me, and I think it is so silly. Because going back to my example with Nintendo, right? When Nintendo does stuff like raise the price of a base video game, regardless of the reason, right? Even if they have the perfect reason imaginable, they have the mathematical equation of inflation and their profit margins, and they're actually making less money post increased price than they normally would have been making like 20 years ago or something, right? Like, let's say like perfect example like that, there's still no reason to defend it. And this isn't even me trying to say that, oh, all games should be the same price. I don't really care. I get it. Inflation happens. It's unrealistic for a game to remain $60 for our entire lives, right? I totally get that. But the problem comes from just defending the company's point of view. Because at the end of the day, the only reason that a company would do something like this and raise the price of a video game is to make sure that they're making more money, right? And I get them making more money doesn't necessarily entail more profit, right? Percent wise, it might be the exact same amount of profit. However, it costs more to develop these games. So if we still want the games, they have to raise the price so that they can fund the projects. This all makes total logical sense, and I absolutely get it. However, from a consumer point of view, no matter how you look at it, an increased price for, quote, the same product, you could say the same product as in quality wise, right? Like when Mario Galaxy came out versus Mario Odyssey, I'd say those are similar in terms of quality for the consumer. So when you look at it from this point of view, where you're essentially paying more for the same quality of product, it seems as though it's a negative towards the consumer. And I would say that it is a negative towards the consumer. But that's not my main point. I don't really want to focus so much on the price range as much as I want to focus on an audience reaction to it. So I feel that no matter what, as a consumer, if we see a anti-consumer practice, even if it's justifiable, even if it makes sense, even if it's necessary, I don't think having a positive response to it ever makes any sort of sense. Because at the end of the day, a company will do whatever it takes to produce a level of profit that they're looking for. So the idea of, oh, we need to raise the game prices so they can fund the games, even if they're percentually making the exact same amount of profit, well, no matter what, they're gonna figure out a way to make that profit and make these games, because that's the entirety of this company's purpose in existing. So whether that means that they're going to raise the price of games, or they're going to cut costs on making the games, whatever that might entail, which could be pretty bad in terms of maybe paying employees less or making them work longer hours for the same amount of pay, it will find a way to make that product, because that is the company's purpose. All companies provide either a product or a service to a consumer, and they must continue to provide that product or service for as long as humanly possible, because they have shareholders who are expecting some sort of revenue generation from this company. They have people who are working for the company who need to get paid. It all works together to where no matter what, this company will be producing these things for us to consume. So finally, I wanted to explain that a little bit just because I think it is necessary for the next point I'm going to make. But in terms of a consumer, any sort of positive reinforcement towards a company that isn't due to a direct positive for the consumer makes no sense. So if a company releases a game, let's say Silk Song comes out and it's $20, which is absolutely insane for the product that you're getting, a positive reinforcement to that is a good thing, right? Because other companies might see that, it might see how popular it was, how the barrier to entry for this game was so low that so many people could play it. Everyone was talking about it because it was so cheap and how they enjoyed that. So more people bought it. So it ended up turning out more revenue than it would have if maybe it was $30. That makes total sense. And I think it warrants some glaze for the company that makes decisions that are so positive to the consumer. However, if a product releases, and I'm using games as an example, but you can really apply this to anything that comes from a company. If a product releases and the game is subpar, maybe it has a bad story, but it has good gameplay, it then makes sense to focus on the negative of that product being the bad story rather than focusing on the positive being the good gameplay. Now, the reason behind this mindset is because if we're buying a game with a bad story and good gameplay that is selling itself as a story game, let's say, because certain games it doesn't really matter, but we'll use the example of like an RPG where you kind of expect to have a good story, good gameplay. Other companies might see the positive feedback that that company is getting and see, okay, well, realistically, stories don't matter that much because this game's super successful. It has high ratings. Everyone's talking positively about it and focusing on the positives. So we can kind of cut back on maybe some story costs in the sense of the writing, the cutscenes, the voice acting. All of these things are seen as resources that are only being used because they will generate more profit in having a good story, which is an expectation in single player RPGs nowadays. So while yes, this is an extreme example and it's very unlikely to happen based off of one video game, upon repeated events, if we are only focusing on positives in games and not criticizing them and focusing on negatives, it could have adverse effects for the gaming industry as a whole. So when I see someone actively defend a company, not even a game, right? Because I get sometimes if you really like a game, you kind of make it as an attack on the game as an attack on yourself, which is its own problem. That's more of just a person problem rather than what I'm talking about here. But defending the company is just so insane to me because doing so will have nothing but adverse effects on you in the future. Like I said before, unless your parents work for the company, so your livelihood is directly tied to the company's success, it just makes no sense to then go and defend that company. This is crazy for multiple reasons. Like I said, it could have those bad effects down the line, but also there are people whose jobs it is to basically make this company look as good as humanly possible in the eyes of a consumer, and you are doing their job for them. People are getting paid. They get paid big money to do the job that these people online will just do for free, which makes no sense. It's like, why are you doing that? I just think it's so silly that if I scroll into a comment section and I see two people debating whatever, and then as soon as I see someone take the side of the company, even if they are in the right, they just look like such a jester, man. It's just so silly. And a sort of extension of this that I see often as well is being grateful for these products that we're receiving. Again, I'm using games, but it's anything. So when a game comes out and it's okay, or it's, 7 out of 10, like it's a little bit better than okay, and then I see people criticize the parts of it that bring it down from being a perfect game, I'll then see, well, you should just be grateful that we're even getting another entry into the series, or you should just be grateful that we're at least receiving something to play. This is just so stupid because there's zero reason to be grateful for any product that you pay for. It is the understanding of the merchant and the consumer that I give you money and you give me the product that I want. There's no reason to be grateful for a transaction being complete the way that it should be complete. We as a society are basically built upon this trade rule of expectation of complete trade, where that's a me original, by the way, right there. I don't know if that even exists, but it's that I give you something and you give me what I want in return. That's kind of how all of the world works right now. So yes, you could say thank you after as a sort of politeness, but in terms of being grateful for the product you're receiving, that just doesn't make any sense because you're paying for the product. The only thing you should be grateful for is if you go on Nexus and download a mod. That's something you should be grateful for because that person has no reason to be making that other than just being a good guy, right? And just the love of the game, I guess. That's then something that I would use the argument, hey man, even if it's not working all the time, you should just be grateful it exists, because yes, you should be grateful you're receiving this product for free. Going down this whole grateful thought train, I see it a lot with anime as well, where an anime will have mediocre animation or relatively bad voice acting or whatever the case may be, and people will say you should just be grateful that the anime is being produced to begin with. So I see a lot of people take this standpoint and then they think that they're geniuses because they say, oh, well, anime doesn't make that much money, so really they just are doing it for the fans, blah, blah, blah. That's just not true. I'll tell you right now, if something doesn't somehow turn a profit, a company doesn't do it. I'm gonna break this rule of society to you. other than like mods and stuff like that, if something is being produced, it's being produced to generate some sort of profit. If you can't figure out why that is, it's because it's probably not a direct profit, where for instance anime, you watching anime and paying for a Crunchyroll subscription probably isn't generating the majority of the profit that that anime will then produce. And what I mean by that is that anime is more so a glorified ad for the manga and the merchandise associated with it. An example of this is Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer as a manga is fine. The art is pretty bad, but the story's fine. The fights are fine. The characters are fine. It's a fine manga, and I like Demon Slayer a lot, but the thing that makes it so good is the anime has fantastic animation. People then talk about it because it has fantastic animation. They tell their friends about it. Their friend who has never seen an anime in their life has now seen Demon Slayer. They see the movie together at the theater. They then go buy Demon Slayer merchandise because they love Demon Slayer so much, and they then end up buying the manga because they like Demon Slayer so much. This then turns a profit for the company that's producing it because the glorified ad worked, and now all these people love Demon Slayer, and now it's generating millions in the movie theater, which never would have happened if that advertisement of an anime didn't exist. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that the Demon Slayer anime exists because I really enjoy watching it, but am I grateful that it exists? Probably not, just because I know me watching it is inadvertently producing money for this company, because I'm then bound to talk about it. Look at me talking about it right now. If I never would have watched the anime, I wouldn't be talking about Demon Slayer, and maybe this would inspire someone to go watch it and go down that pipeline I just described. So then back to my point of, if an anime drops and the animation's bad, and then defending the bad animation by saying, well, at least we're getting the anime for it, it just doesn't really make sense to me. I get maybe you're happy that you get to watch it instead of read it, but you're also just being grateful because you get to watch a glorified commercial. I don't know. It just kind of bothers me when I see that argument being made by people online, especially in the anime community. Now back to my original point of what brought me to think about this, which was the Game Awards and how people are just so intensely supporting their game that they want to win. This passion to support a video game to where it's almost like you need to attack other people because they want their game to win makes no sense at all. Obviously, I think this is more of like a mental to personality sort of problem that I don't really want to delve into too deeply. But a lot of people end up basing their own self-value off of how a piece of media does if they're very heavily attached to it. So for instance, let's say Elden Ring is my favorite game of all time, then Elden Ring doesn't win Game of the Year because God of War wins. All of a sudden, I might feel a sense of invalidation because, well, I really like Elden Ring. I put a lot of time into Elden Ring. Elden Ring is one of my things, and my thing just got kicked off the throne by another game that I don't love as much. So then I might see that as a personal attack on me of, oh, well, maybe if I'm liking these games that aren't actually all that good, what does that say about me? And it's just this rabbit hole. And I think a lot of people end up doing this. I don't know why, but they put too much eggs into one basket. And then when the basket gets dropped on the floor, they see their life as though it's basically ending. And it just sucks that every year when the Game Awards come around, it never feels like people supporting their thing. It feels like people are ready to die for their thing, and they need to explain to you why their thing is better than your thing, which obviously no one cares. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something I've been thinking about like a lot recently, just because I feel like it's such an unnatural and inhumane thing to blindly support and defend a company or to put all your eggs into a product. It just feels so capitalist core, you know, and it's just, but like not in like a cool way where it's like, oh, I just made $1 billion off sitting in my chair. It's in like a weird way where you're just getting so taken advantage of that you don't even realize you're getting taken advantage of anymore. And it just makes me uncomfortable. I feel bad a lot of the time for these people because, like I said, a lot of it could stem from just actual like problems that they have in terms of their self-identity. But a lot of it too is just because people are annoying and they just don't understand that not everyone has to love the thing that they love. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just something I kind of want to ramble about. But Expedition 33 is going to win every single category it was nominated for. And if you disagree, you unfortunately have bad taste in video games and your opinion is invalid, therefore, on every single topic in existence. So thank you for that.